Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Get Real, Get Wiser. Today's topic will be about AI, and we have a special guest. A lot of business owners hear AI immediately feel one or two things. Either I'm falling behind, or this is overhyped and not for me. If either of those sound familiar, this conversation is for you. This isn't about chasing trends. It's about how real business owners are reacting, where the resistance comes from, and what actually starts to work in practice. Aaron, thanks for coming on. Before we get into reactions and resistance, I want to give people a quick anchor so they're not guessing what we're talking about. Aaron's company is called SCHWAI. What does SCHWAI help a business do?
We provide two things. We do company trainings. A lot of people, their staff hasn't learned how to be using AI in their business. A lot of efficiency we found in companies comes from getting people using the tools, and then they find a lot of the efficiencies themselves. So just getting people trained in on the basics. And the other side of it is actually come into the business. We call it a fractional CAO, Chief Automation Officer, where we learn the business and find where the efficiencies are and build automations and workflows that get streamlined operations.
What were you doing before SCHWAI, and what led you to create it?
So I didn't have a career and then jumped to this, just started here. I've always been a very technical person. I've been the IT person for everyone who I know for the last 15 years. As AI was coming, as ChatGPT came out and as these things developed, I was very on top of it. And this is going back September 2024. It exploded on the scene, and everyone was like, "Oh my gosh, AI is a big thing, and we have to get on top of it." But no one had any idea what it was. So my dad, he's been a huge proponent adopting AI and using it for a long time. And he said to me, "I speak to a lot of business owners all the time, and they're desperate for someone to help them." And so I was like, okay, but who's going to pay me to do anything? In the one land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. You know this stuff. They don't. So you come in, people will pay you. I didn't believe him at first, but I believed him enough to start it off, try it out, and they did.
Where were you the moment you heard about ChatGPT and you said, "Oh my God, this thing is wild"?
I don't actually remember. I knew the concept existed before ChatGPT came out because Meta, Facebook, put out a similar bot a year earlier. It wasn't as good, and it didn't really hit. What happened with ChatGPT was they released a chatbot that you could converse with, and then someone realized, hey, wait a minute, if I can converse with it, I can also tell it to write me an essay or analyze some data points. And then when ChatGPT was first released, there was no login, there was no chat history. It was a research project. That's why it's called ChatGPT. It's just because it was a GPT is the technology and you chat with it. But no one realized what it was going to do. So I was aware of the technology. To me, it wasn't a moment of, oh my gosh. I had this moments of
Right.
I was like realizing the applications, but that was a more gradual process. It didn't like a lightning bolt moment for me.
What was the one thing that you realized that said, this can really be a business? This is something that people don't get, and you felt you were so far ahead of the curve that it would work, besides for your father's
Yeah.
encouragement and pushing.
Um, I was interning and I built internal knowledge base chatbots like that. We have our documents and you can train in new people like by asking it. Um, and things where like you can have data coming from one place, the AI can parse it out and put it into somewhere else. The second one is really the one that spoke to me more. There's an enormous amount of like in every business, enormous amount of back office administrative work, which is essentially just taking data from one place and moving it somewhere else. AI is suited for a lot of things, but that's something that takes up an enormous amount of time, energy, and money is spent on that, and that's something that AI can take over a lot of. Offshoring is at risk because of this, because the kinds of well-defined jobs that you send out to an offshore staffing company, a lot of it you can translate over to AI. So that I saw the potential really
Wow.
more in that sort of work.
So you found the low-hanging fruit that you thought that you believe that you can
Right.
capitalize
Yeah.
on. So you went out there, and when you explained this to business owners for the first time, how was it usually
So
received?
it's interesting because I never really did an enormous amount of outbound marketing because I started this, it was already at a point in the cycle where everyone was coming to us like, we need someone, so help us. And so there was really them calling. I didn't have to sell that. This is, I like to talk about that. I don't have to spend millions of dollars in marketing and billions of dollars in marketing to put it out because Facebook, Amazon, Google, ChatGPT, OpenAI, Claude, all these companies, they're putting in so much money in marketing to sell AI. So everyone sees that and everyone says, oh, we need AI. And then we present ourselves, we are experts in the field. And it's much more inbound than it has been outbound for us. We've been recently started doing more outbound because now there's a million people who do this. You need to differentiate yourself. But it's been for a long time, it was almost purely inbound.
Do you feel you have a leg up on the competition because you're a first mover?
In the from space, yes, I do think so. Yeah, there is a certain amount of name recognition we have because we started out first.
So they reach out to you and they say, what can you do
Sorry,
for
excuse me.
me? And then you give them a proposal, and whatever you offer, they're in.
No, then it just becomes a matter of cost of value. They come in, they think AI can do anything. And then part of my job is to be a reality check. It can't do anything. Here's what it can do. And then here's what we charge. And then it comes down to, okay, is this result something we're looking for? But that's when we do all quote projects like that. But that's not the main business, the main sale, and the main thing we're trying to do is that we are, as if we call it fractional CAO, Chief Automation Officer, which eventually I think will be folded into the CIO, CTO role. But at least as of right now, this is a distinct role where we have our business operations. How can we go and internally make that more efficient by bringing in by automating things and bringing in AI? I focus on automation more than AI, just in my language, because automation is the goal. AI is the tool. AI is a way to automate things. If you're not gaining any efficiency, then you can have as much AI as you want. It doesn't help you. We come into your business and say, okay, based on your business, how can we automate the business and do it on an ongoing basis, as opposed to here are the things that we're the specific items we're going to do. Let's scope this out up front and we'll pay up front and then we'll build the project. That is something we offer, but that's not the direction we think that the business should be going. Because if obviously certain, if it's a small enough business, that's practically how they need to do things. But in a business that has some level of scale, you need to be focusing on how to build your business better and more efficiently.
The idea of AI and automations are that it's automating things that people
Right.
used to do. So there's somebody doing this today that feels threatened. And in general, people feel threatened by
Hmm.
AI. Where do you run up against that?
So so far at least, what we've been doing is not really getting rid of people. It's because we're not focusing. It's not like I'm coming in, okay, that person's job is something we want to get rid of. It's usually that person, that task is something we should automate, and that task or parts of tasks, and you still need an oversight on the task that's being done. So the person's job gradually, as different tasks that they do shift to being done by automation and AI, they move into a more of a managerial role over those same tasks. Um, but yeah, we found that even when we do a CAO client, we'll do a training. We'll include that as part of the package, and we'll do the training right away because when the staff gets to use it, they try to build things with AI and they work with it, we get a lot more buy-in from them because they get very excited about what it can do. So we,
Right.
we haven't experienced encountered an enormous amount of resistance.
Do you ever have a case where you'll train a company and there's no real follow through?
Meaning what?
Meaning the company won't implement what they've been taught, or
It's
it's just so basic that there's no
Yeah,
reason
it's
not to.
very low. It's very individual level, meaning it's like training. We use ChatGPT primarily as for this because it's the entry point, most user friendly we find for people to use. The staff will come on, say we'll start from the ground up. Say here's how you use ChatGPT. Here's the basic features. Here's the ways you should be prompting. By the way, it boils down to express yourself clearly. It's not, you don't have to memorize frameworks or all these things. It's just express yourself clearly, explain what you want, make sure if a person can understand what you were telling them, then the AI can understand it too. If the person wouldn't be able to understand it, the AI is not going to get it either. That's the main thing with prompting. It's not so complicated, but we teach them these sort of things, and then they go and apply themselves on the things that they do in the company, and they see for themselves how much of a game changer it can be. One person might walk away and say, I'm not going to use this, and fine, but we've gotten very good feedback where people say, wow, now I really understand it more. Because like we give them the ground up. They never got that. They came in the middle and just played around with it till they learned stuff. This is more structured. Like how does it work? Why it makes those mistakes? And it's easier to mitigate like hallucinations if what kind of things lead to it and why it does that. So that's the kind of thing that we try to give over as well.
Gemini, ChatGPT, Claude,
First,
Grok. What is it that you use
I
and
use
why?
Claude for almost everything, personally. The reason being because a lot of what I do is programming. So Claude
Hmm.
is in my opinion the best by far. It's also I find it to be more logical. This is actually an interesting thing where a lot of the preference comes down to personality in the sense that what I believe the actual reason for it is because they're all trained slightly differently. And so I have a manner of expressing myself that's different from the way you express yourself. And different models, based on the little tweaks, they will respond better or worse to that slightly different wording that everyone uses. So I think a large part of it. But for me, Claude, the one thing that it's not great at is research. So I keep ChatGPT, but I mainly use it for research.
And what do you train your clients
We
with?
train them with ChatGPT because to start with, Claude also is not as feature rich as ChatGPT. So as a broad, everyone should use this. I wouldn't necessarily recommend starting with Claude, but it has a much higher performance for the specific tasks that I do. And for me personally, I use it a lot, and I have ChatGPT kind of as my secondary to fill in the gaps. If you have to have one and nothing to fill in the gaps, because most people are not starting with three different tools, you need to start with one and learn it. So that's why we say start off with
Right.
ChatGPT. It's the simplest. I guess Gemini would also work. I use Gemini a lot for when I build software automations for companies. I'll use it a lot because it's very good at certain specific tasks like reading PDFs and pulling out specific data points. But for front end use, we use ChatGPT as the launch point. It's also harder
Right.
to Gemini from the Google account that you're using as opposed to ChatGPT, which is its own login, so it's cleaner.
How does SCHWAI actually fit into a normal business day? Give us some examples of automation, what you do for a company, and maybe specific industries that you work in
Okay,
specific.
so this is for a real estate company, but it is pretty across the board. There's a real estate management company that we work with. That They have a lot of recently we've been doing. They have a lot of reporting that they do, which they don't have a data company that comes in and centralizes everything from all their different software. Um, so what they do is they have a couple of VAs who just sit there and compiling reports. So recently for them, I've just been knocking out one at a time. Okay, need this report at this schedule, and just said it. I just pull everything together. There's no real AI involved. It's just the AI is helping me build it. But let's say we have report for them that we run to is a more of a it's a report, but it's also with then there's the AI that does is basically examines their income statements and examines all their expenses, and it goes through on a per building basis, and it says, okay, so let's say and it looks, oh, the sewage for this size unit in this city and this thing, it flags any items that it look too high for that building size type in that location, does research for that specific location. It says, oh, in Tulsa, Oklahoma, that would be for that size building, that would be normal, but then a different expense is like, oh, that's way too high. And then it'll look into possible other solutions, and it'll send that as like a packet to the property manager saying, hey, you should be optimizing your building in these different ways. There's kind of ways of two things that AI can do, general broad categories. It can make something more efficient, something you're already doing, it can make it cheaper and faster. Then there's kind of augmentation where there's something you wouldn't do because it's too expensive for the goal, but AI can do it cheap and fast enough that it's worth it. Basic reporting is something that they had someone doing manually. Now it's not. So that's just making it more efficient, streamlining. And then we have on the other end, we have augmentation where no one's going to sit there combing through every single building's income statement to find what might be too high and then go doing research, and it's too much work. So this is something that we have it that it goes and it does.
When you work with clients, do you measure success in terms of dollars saved?
So we haven't done it much. I do have one off the top of my head where we actually did do the math. Um, it was actually, I thought it was pretty cool, just the numbers we did for a client, a 15-minute process that was being done 4 times a day, roughly on average, and we saved them 10 minutes a day on that. So still the same people are still doing it, just one person is able to do a lot more, and you'll spend less time per. Save 10 minutes a day on 4 times a day, we're saving them 40 minutes a day, which is exactly 1/12 of a workday, which is a month of a year. So they're saving essentially a month's salary because of this one 10-minute process. They're saving a month's salary.
It sounds to me, and this is always the question about AI, is people are scared of it and people don't know how to approach it. But it sounds like you guys are the friendly AI company where everybody stays safe, you save some money, there's no overreaching, no big dreams, just more efficiency, which is always acceptable, and people across the board are always
Yeah, so
happy with it.
we try to keep it realistic. People say, "Oh, I'm gonna have an AI agent that does everything for me." Yes and no, depending how you build it. 'Cause a lot of people say, "Oh, just give the AI all the tools and just let it do whatever it wants when everything comes in." It makes for a very nice demo because when it does work, it's mind blowing. The problem is that when in business, you need it to work every time. An 85% success rate for a process that's being done behind the scenes without anyone touching it might as well be zero. You can't have emails where you send an email and 85% of the time it makes it. A lot of the processes we're working on, these are part of the business. When you use ChatGPT, okay, so it gets something wrong occasionally. Fine, you're reading the thing it just produced. Oh, that was wrong. Let me fix it. It doesn't work that way here in a lot of the stuff we're doing. So we try to give it very strict rules. What the AI gets past, what it needs, when it needs it, only for specific steps, and so it keeps things working properly. For an example, we built for a business recently for their underwriting. They send in an email with any documentation and it just pulls it out, assigns it to whatever units, and then sends them back a clean Excel sheet with a rent roll and everything they need. Now, we don't just have an AI that takes any document and just does whatever it wants. We have a specific code that at a certain point says we need the AI to tell us what kind of document this is. Here are your options. Give you some context, and that's it. And then it just gives it back. And then we have the documents categorized, and then we have the AI extract the unit names. We keep it very, very tightly controlled so that we're taking advantage of what AI lets us do. You wouldn't be able to do unless you happen to be a massive company with an enormous amount of data that you could build a machine learning model off of. We can do this at a much smaller scale, but at the same time, you have the reliability of real software behind it.
How fast is the technology moving forward? Is it every week you have more abilities and more confidence in the system?
So for some things, yes. The biggest thing for me has been data extraction from documents. That went from like very weak to basically 100% reliable, depending on the situation, in less than a year. I used to do multiple steps for that. Now it's literally just hand it to Gemini 3 Flash. If it gets really complex, then you need certain steps, but a lot of it is basically very straightforward now. Um, a lot of the advances have been in going from it can do a task at 30% reliability to 50% reliability to 60% reliability. But again, our threshold is for these sorts of things is so high that it hasn't made a difference yet because until it gets to 90% plus, it's basically worthless for us. There's a lot of little things that they've changed, which have been very helpful for us, but there's on a more technical side of things. There's a lot of these kind of quality of life changes that have also been very helpful, but um, major capabilities like front end automation, like having it go onto a website, click things for you, still not at the point where I'm going to say we're just going to use that and then good to go.
Do you have a future plan, a wish list, milestones that you think you'll get to and are waiting for, or you're just taking it as it comes?
So I think that if it gets that much more advanced on certain things, I don't want it to get that much better. Because if it does get too much better, then if people think like now programming jobs are in trouble, if it gets significantly better on these sorts of tasks, then a lot more people are in trouble. And I don't think that's necessarily positive.
Building SCHWAI, what surprised you the most? Was there any point where you had to pivot, or has it been a straight line path and just you had the idea and it's just
So
flowing?
it started out a lot more in the I'm working for you building, and now it's moving towards I'm working with you, helping you build the business through AI and automation. We're moving more into that space. I knew very little about business. I knew some. I knew more than most about AI and automation, but that wasn't a crazy amount either. Over time, now I've gotten a lot of experience in both arenas. So I would say it's more of a natural evolution than a pivot because I'm not trying to just stay a dev shop forever. I'm trying to leverage the value that I can bring to the table and as a consequence get paid more. I don't see it as a pivot.
So, do you foresee any one part of your business folding into the other at some point?
it already is somewhat unified. I mean, the trainings are come along with the CAO package. That's part of getting the business on board. It also exists as its own offering because it's a nice supplement to the income. Also, I'm not really doing the trainings. I have my partner. I did them in the beginning, and I trained him in, and now he does the trainings. This kind of thing, like basic training, the guy who understands it at the sales level is actually able to give it over better than me because it's easier for him to come at it from a very basic perspective. Me, I'm coming in like I'm living this in the trenches so much. To go back to step one is difficult for me. It's not a demand really on my time either. So I don't see at any point where we'll stop doing that. The only thing that I can see at one point eventually stopping is where we also do quoted projects. It's possible that we have enough business with just the CAO that's okay. It's not worth it for me to split my time into these projects that are one-offs as opposed to CAO, which is an ongoing thing. So that's the only thing that
Right.
conceivably I could see going away.
What was the biggest business revelation about the business world that you've had as an entrepreneur and running your own company?
Running how important time management is across the organization and how much time, management takes. I have a couple of developers under me now. Let's say I bring on one developer, it's not doubling the amount of time I have available. I don't know what the equation is, but there's a certain amount that as you add developers, it lowers my time. Running from working in the business to working on the business, that takes time away. In general, time management of the employees is like making sure that we have a bunch of clients and making sure that we're allocating our time effectively is also, it was more challenging than I anticipated. I guess that's just because I didn't have any experience on that.
What would you do differently today than when you started?
If I'd been starting now with the experience I have, I would start the business in much more the direction we're going now. Really, just where we are now, I would just move it back. The way it was started was really a necessity because I was just starting out. I think that I would have the confidence now, based on what I know that I can do. I could go and say, even though I don't have the name, I could go and sell myself well enough that I wouldn't need it as much.
Do you ever get a phone call from a CEO or from any prospective client, and after 2 minutes you say to yourself, this is not going to work. This is not a client that I can take on or that I want to take
From a
on?
capabilities perspective or from a personality of the client perspective?
From an idea that the expectations or the ability to work with them is just not going to create any
Yes,
value.
we had a meeting somewhat early on with a company where on the call we were trying to figure out what we can do for them. And they kept saying, how can you get us more clients? I was like, how do you get clients now? We don't know. I'm like, okay, so how am I supposed to help you get more clients? If you have no idea how it will be done and it's your business, if they're coming in treating AI like magic and there's no convincing them that AI is not magic, AI is technology and it has limitations and there are ways to use it. If they can't be convinced of that fact, there's nothing to do.
One piece of free advice for everybody out there, something about AI that they can take home with them from this podcast and instantly use and make their business better. What would you tell
So
them?
I'm gonna go with on the topic of your individual AI use because that's much more everyone uses like a ChatGPT, a Gemini, a Claude, or something. When you get a wrong answer, edit your prompts instead of saying no, that was wrong, do it this way. There's a couple of reasons for this. Number one is you learn how to write things correctly, meaning how to prompt it correctly. I've gotten significantly better at prompting because now I know what to write into the prompt to avoid the issues that I've seen happen. As opposed to if you answer it afterwards, it's much you still get some of that idea, but you don't see how the wording would go. You have to learn that on the fly if you do the editing. Number one. Number two is that when you go and it gives you the wrong answer, you ever notice when you ask it like a question and it gives you the wrong answer, you say, no, it's actually this way. And they'll sit there and it'll argue with you for an hour saying, no, I was right, and this is why, and it's 100% wrong. You can show it 15 sources why it's wrong, and it'll just keep going. It's because the way they work is it's a statistical model. Every bit of context it has is influencing its response. So if you continue on that same conversation path where it already gave a wrong answer, you're letting that wrong answer influence what it says next. So if you go back and edit it, as far as the AI is concerned, that part of the conversation never happened. So you're able to avoid that to begin with.
Right,
So I think that is the single thing
right.
that people don't do enough that people should do, that will be it. Edit your prompts instead of correcting the AI.
Aaron, I appreciate how grounded this conversation was. Thanks for keeping it practical and honest, and thanks for joining us today. Anybody wants to reach out to Aaron, where can they
So
reach you?
our website, SCHWAI.com, SCHWAI, which stands for supercharged with AI, just by the way. So you can give the chatbot on there your name, company, and email, and it'll let us know, and then Mendy will reach out. Or there's a form you can just fill out if you want to, if you're feeling boring. From LinkedIn, you can find me or Mendy Palace, my partner. You can find our email addresses there, and you can reach out to us directly. Um,
Thank you. Thank you,
thank
Aaron. I hope you all took away some interesting tidbits and changed your impression of AI and understand that it's not something to be afraid of. Embrace it, go forward with it, and welcome to the new world.
you, Svi.